button.
The autocorrect on my phone's annoying as shit because if you use slang, it will autocorrect real words to slang. So, like, if I write the word yaw, like, for instance, it will now autocorrect other words to be yaw. Even ya. Like, the biggest one for me is us, because I guess it's just where they line up on a phone. But if it's like, if I'm saying, like, us, it'll autocorrect to ya. And it's fucking annoying.
Ya?
Yeah.
What's ya?
Yeah.
Like
or just
Y-A.
like YA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll be like, yeah, and then it'll just, like, later on when I write something, I'll just be like...
Us.
Yeah.
The weird thing is my phone just keeps correcting everything to racial slurs. I can't explain it.
No, that's because you use them all the time.
No,
all day long as you're sending emails.
Hey, you using HHHGGG?
Yeah. That's very inconsiderate of you. I don't know if you're familiar, but that phrase isn't what it used to be,
Yeah.
that term.
I used to say it all the time, and nobody ever said anything to me.
Yeah. I know, I turned autocorrect off on my phone.
I couldn't do that. I'm the worst speller.
I used to be better at it than I think I am now.
You've gotten worse at spelling as you're getting older?
Yes, I did spelling bee in, like, elementary school and stuff like that.
I am definitely getting dumber. I am way dumber now than I was, like, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. New information is getting
Not
pushed
you,
out
me.
of my brain.
No, it's okay. You can
Also,
agree.
Yeah.
All right, that's a fun, that's a little fun realization for everybody.
So, Chris, are you familiar with what's kind of going on right now with College Humor?
Austin briefly explained it to me in the car yesterday.
Because he brought it up to me, and recently, I guess, you pointed out that they have a streaming service that is also, unfortunately,
Dropout.tv.
that is going to be going away soon. So we started watching some shows on there, many of which were very good. One of them is called Actually. It's a game show where you just correct people on nerd trivia.
Nice.
Yeah, so the whole thing is the host of the show just has cards with statements on them, but something in the statement is wrong.
Yeah, like a false statement about Star Wars or Harry Potter or something.
And you have to correct him, but if you don't say actually, you don't get any points.
It's just like Jeopardy.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's really good.
But we were talking about us, like, losing our ability to retain certain information as we get older. The last question of every episode is a real-life skills question.
Yeah.
So it'll be a whole bunch of questions about video games and anime and all this shit. And then the very last question is, like, how to change a tire or, like, how to read the gas meter in your house. And if you ever want to feel like the biggest idiot, like, but it's such a good idea for a show.
It is.
Yeah.
Everybody out there listening, dropout.tv.
Subscribe and then...
Subscribe, and then hopefully they can keep it going longer than a couple months.
Yeah. It's sad. And I know, was it Funny or Die went through something similar?
Yeah, well, that was the whole Facebook thing.
Yeah. That's sad, man. Like, I have a lot of nostalgia for, like, comedy-based companies that are struggling to survive. Like,
that was the interesting thing is when College Humor went under, I saw a very long post, like a Twitter thread about them dying, essentially.
right, yeah.
There's a lot of people on College Humor, just like, you know how like The Daily Show in the early 2000s became like this weird like jumping off board for a lot of comedians like Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert. And
Absolutely.
well, there's becoming less and less of those now. And like
true.
College Humor was a big one because I got into College Humor a while ago back when they had their older cast. And like... two of those cast members went on to found a podcast network called HeadGum.
Yeah.
Right,
One of them is a head writer for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
Yeah, John Oliver.
One of them is a head writer, or two of them were head writers on Saturday Night Live for a while.
Wow. So, like, those jumping off points are now going away.
Yeah, like these companies are slowly going under, and it's like...
Where
like
you find new talent for, like,
YouTube
young...
and social media is, like, replacing, like... Like, you have to get famous yourself in comedy now. There's nowhere to go as a comedy writer unless you can't also film it and put it on somewhere.
Yeah.
That's true. You're putting a lot of the pressure on the individual.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Sounds like capitalism.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And Facebook paid $40 million for almost putting under two of the biggest comedy companies on the internet and putting under a lot of smaller companies.
It's fucking sad.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Like I'm on YouTube now. It's like the one thing I see that's cool is like some of my favorite creators are getting like Comedy Central, little things like Caleb City has like videos
Yeah,
with
Gus
Comedy
Johnson.
Central.
Yeah.
Gus Johnson also.
He's all right. I like Caleb City.
I
don't
yeah.
really like
Well,
Gus
just-
Johnson.
Used to see it a little bit with Adult Swim would do that because that's how like Brad Neely broke in there and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like, like they'll
absolutely.
just do like little bumpers or
William Street's very like looking for talent all the time.
yeah. I mean,
But a
they're
lot of those guys also recruit like straight out of L.A.
that's
I
true.
don't think there's a lot.
They're
of
in an
like,
odd position right now because it's like the audience that they're targeting is no longer using cable, so it's
Yeah.
like they have to stay relevant.
Channel
through other means.
5, they're talking about doing like... Well, I know there's some version of it, I should say, where it's supposed to be like a 24-hour running show, like
Yeah.
channel, but it's like a subscription service that you can tune into. Like, if we wanted
Wow,
to
that's
watch
interesting.
what's on
Yeah.
Channel 5 right now, we like tune in and we can watch it. Like, I know Tim Heidecker has a lot to do with that, too.
That's pretty punk rock, actually. Just like it reminds me of like the pirate radio days.
Yeah.
You know, of just like
Yeah,
like
I know there's a
broadcast
bunch of
yourself.
people who have shows or like working on shows for that, too.
Man. Well, all right. Who's ready for some more Tetris?
Bum, 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 bum,
No.
Oh wait, that's not Tetris.
No. Well, it depends which version of Tetris you play. If you play
Wait,
Tetris
you're
DS or
telling me
99,
Tetris
like-
isn't the one with the short little blue guy that shoots a gun out of the gun arm, right? Where that song comes from?
no, it's the one where you steal cars, you commit crimes.
Oh, Government Simulator. That's not that good.
Your eyes lit up like a jug.
If you didn't have steel cars in there, it might have worked.
All right, well, this is Hot Button. I'm your hard-dropping host, Randall Beatrice, here with my confidants, or should I say comrades, Austin Blakesley.
Don't say hard dropping.
Is that
Why,
a
is
poop?
that-
Is that a poop thing?
I think it's it's
you already
or,
made
it's
a poop
or it's a dick thing. I don't know.
Is it?
It sounds like
I'm
something.
running out of Tetris puns.
Oh, is hard dropping a Tetris thing?
Yeah. it
Yeah,
is.
when you hard drop.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Stop saying it.
I'm pretty sure on a previous episode we did say something about hard dropping sounding like taking a shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It might have been in a clip. That's how.
Yeah.
Well, you fucked up your intros, but that is Austin Blakesley,
Yeah.
and that is Chris Anantuano.
Yeah. If nothing gives us the shining example of people who are just talking about how they're aging and can't remember and getting stupider, and then we don't remember our own jokes about poop.
And it was only an episode ago. I wasn't like,
That was years ago.
This is Austin Blakesley T-spinning my way into...
I already made a
That was
T-spinning.
one
that
big-
was my introduction last
That was
episode.
one big taco cheeseburger ago.
My cheeseburger had pineapples on it.
Well, we're kicking it off professionally here, but now I lost my place.
You can't say professional and then do the stupidest thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way.
Well, welcome back. This is part 3 of our story on the history of the game, so if you're confused as all hell right now, then please go back and listen to parts 1 and 2, and then return to this. So everything from here on
you
out
did
will
click
make
something
sense.
called Part
Yeah,
3.
you did,
so-
it says part 3 in the title, so like I feel like that's on them. If that's the
Maybe,
case.
I don't know. Hey, people aren't always about reading. Sometimes they're just about clicking.
That's true. I never read anything except for headlines of articles, and then I get really mad and fight with people on the internet.
Also, if you have listened to parts 1 and 2, then you already know just how crazy certain areas of this whack-ass adventure can get.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, does anyone need a quick recap before we pick up where we left off for our previous cliffhanger?
I mean,
Yes.
yes. Also,
Okay.
you should do it anyway for the people listening.
I was just
Yeah.
asking you guys, like, hypothetically.
Yeah, no.
Last
okay,
I remember,
so
we hopped
Shigeru
into-
Miyamoto created it because he likes gardening, and they won't let him ride his bike anymore. Oh wait, that's Pikmin.
I was
Oh,
going to
that
say,
is
mine
Pikmin.
was going to be that we just hopped into a painting and now we're in a 3D underwater world.
Well, don't worry. This episode will be slightly more straightforward than the last one, I think.
Ever think about how that's called? Isn't that like Dry Docks, the name of that Mario world?
I don't remember.
Dire Docks.
Oh,
Yeah. Which is way more pretty. And
that
like that
makes sense. Dire,
yeah, well,
because everybody's gonna die if he doesn't swim. I don't remember that game.
you should replay Mario 64.
It's incredible. It's a
It
masterpiece.
really is. Okay, so I believe the very last thing we got into was in regards to the three men who were all traveling to L-Org's headquarters in Moscow in search of straightening out all this Tetris funny business.
One had frankincense, the other one had
Myrrh, and then gold. But the gold was confiscated at the Soviet border.
yeah.
But, this was about the rights and licensing and who owns what or who misunderstood or lied to who,
Yeah.
Of those three men, there was, of course, Hank Rogers. Not Hank Rogers, as I said in the previous episode. I sincerely apologize to everyone. I know.
Hank, H-I-N-K?
H-E-N-K.
Hank.
Yes. Yeah.
He's the Austrian guy, Hungarian guy, German guy. Is he American? Is he Japanese?
He's Swedish, right?
Hank?
He was the Swedish guy that married a Japanese woman and then moved to Japan?
He was Dutch.
Dutch, sorry.
Yeah.
Dutch.
Although he was working for an American company.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But he was Dutch. Just like chocolate and weed.
That guy from Red Dead.
Clogs. The guy from Red Dead.
Also, it was not an American company. He was working for a Japanese company because of his...
Yeah, because of his wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know the story better than you do. All right, I'll take it from here.
It was Spectrum Holobyte was the American company. But this is Hank Rogers. We're already starting this off with a correction. But he's going to be a very important person continuing on today. Like I said, he was the Dutch game designer and owner of Japanese publisher Bulletproof Software.
Yeah.
He was the one responsible for bringing Tetris to the Famicom. Not Tenjin, as I accidentally stated in the previous discussion as well. This is the only problem with doing episodes like this in parts. See, his copy was published by mistake. Tengen basically gave him the wrong permissions to do it while they worked on their NES port here. The one you mentioned,
Okay, so
Austin.
the one that's like Tetris :
the Soviet mind game. Yes.
That's the U.S. one.
That is the U.S. one
and
that
then
Tengen was responsible for.
Bulletproof published the Japanese Famicom.
Yes, and they also, we haven't gotten to it yet, but they are the publishers of the Game Boy version, which was worldwide.
Bullet Point was?
Bulletproof.
Bulletproof.
Sorry. I don't know if you fucked up there or me.
There's so many names. I think I fucked up.
But Tengen didn't have anything to do with the initial Japanese release outside selling the rights, which they didn't have. That would also explain why the reaction was what it was when he whipped out that cartridge while being the first to arrive looking for answers in Moscow.
And his bad experience in Moscow, that's why he became Captain America when he got back, right?
Answers that led to an angry, angry Russian.
His last name's Rogers,
Yeah.
that's it.
No, yeah, I had to think about it for a
Steve
second.
Rogers.
Steve
Okay,
Rogers.
And I'll get back to that angry Russian in a sec.
I feel like there's going to be a
Red
lot of
Skull.
angry Russians.
Wait, no, he's German.
Then,
Red Skull's German.
Okay.
Next there was
Also
Richard.
Agent Smith.
Next there was Richard Stein, a kind of veteran character in our story for 3 episodes now, but he was the licensee from Hungary, an owner of the British Andromeda Software, who first bought the game outside the Iron Curtain. Then last of the 3, there was Kevin Maxwell, the son of Robert Maxwell, who founded the Mega Maxwell Communications Corporation and was unoriginal with names.
Kevin Maxwell's the kid from Home Alone, right? Sorry, I had to have my own Captain America joke. That was good.
Kevin was more or less being sent as a representative for the business by his daddy, who I'm sure didn't know what the fuck was going on.
And his dad left him in Chicago.
All right, back to that angry Russian. Mr. Nikolai Belikov, the new cutthroat head of the L-Org company who is now in charge of everything Tetris within the USSR.
And
they took over Academy Soft's
and king of stereotypical Russian names.
Also in the story, there was American publisher, which I brought up before, Spectrum Holobyte. Mm-hmm. They were probably most famous for releasing the Apple II edition from the IBM version of the game, which we didn't really get into before, but I recently saw photos of the original packaging it came in. It was 3 diskettes, along with a little, please don't make copies of this note from the company.
They also get the award for coolest company name in a
Of
sea
these?
of company names.
And
Yeah,
you know what?
I
That
agree.
please don't make copy of these kind of worked too, probably.
Back then,
That's
yeah.
the insane thing.
Anyway, they were run by Phil Adam under Chairman Gilman Louie, who also founded the Nexa Corporation, which was merged into Spectrum, and both were under parent company Maxwell.
I just want to point out, it sounds like you're making this all up. I know you're not, but it sounds like you sound like an improv person just making up company names.
White guy, corporation.
There's more than one corporation.
Is that the Tetris Mad Libs? White guy corporation.
Then with them, there was Mirrorsoft, the UK publisher run by Jim Machinage. They were the ones that changed a lot of the Soviet imagery in their release that came up in the last for the Amiga and Atari ST.
Yeah, we gotta get rid of this red square. More like red square scare over here in Europe. You know what I mean?
I just find it fascinating how different all of these titles actually looked from each other, like graphically. But they were also under Maxwell.
Just blocks.
Yeah. Well, no, they had backgrounds.
The Spectral Holobyte one, the one where you were like, was that the one where you were like in a spaceship cockpit? In like a Soviet capsule?
Yes. Yeah.
That was insane.
And I tried to find which one of these two companies did the C64 version, and all the wikis I found just said both. So I generally don't know who did what on that one. Moving on, there was the aforementioned Tengen and Atari, along with their president, Haruki Nakajima, Nintendo president of Japan, Hiroshi Yamauchi, Nintendo president of America, Minoru Arakawa, the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, who needs no introduction.
It's the guy that made Pikmin.
The Sega folks, who I have yet to super get into. Then on the
Sonic? The Hedgehog?
Then on the actual Tetris side of things, there was Vladimir Pokhilko, the psychologist, coders Dmitry Pavlovsky and Vadim Gerasimov, the Noble porting team, and finally, there was Alexei Pajitnov, the wonderful man who created the whole thing, thus starting this massive fire, and who also likely had no idea who most of these other people even were.
And that's the cast of the most boring Expendables movie you ever seen.
Now, I think I have all my corrections in order. The only other thing I could bring up was in regards to, this was a Spectrum's showing at CES, where I said the game was fairly empty looking with a black background, but here it likely featured way more graphics. The statements from those commenting on the art being basic, that was probably more in comparison to other titles of the era that featured actual animations like a Mega Man or Castlevania.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody got it?
I'm all caught up.
Cool.
Let's do this.
Okay. So we're going to pick back up just one day after the events of last time. A relatively frightened Rogers returned to the Elorg HQ and was promptly escorted into a room for a meeting. According to his reports, he was...
Meeting.
Yeah.
Meeting with air quotes.
He was sat by himself in the end of a very large table with Belikov, his lawyers and company representatives on the other side. And also, finally, Alexei himself was with them.
Wow, dude gets the spotlight.
Yeah.
Spotlight, he don't know what the fuck is going on. He's probably like, what are we doing?
Please don't murder me.
What was supposed to be a sales pitch, complete with a confident Nintendo name drop, was now a sort of trial, especially since those Russians present didn't really even know who the Big N was, or hell, even what the bigger video game business and market was itself.
Japan. Oh, that small island off our eastern coast that we battled one time.
This was when Rogers decided to instead act cordial rather than defensive and essentially give the men there a kind of crash course in the industry, explaining what the Famicom was, who his group is, the sales the title was getting. The reps from Elorg then, after hearing this, responded by showing him a copy of the original contract with Stein and his company, Andromeda. Upon looking it over, this was when Rogers pointed out the troubling line I mentioned in the previous episode about Stein's rights to port the game to, quote, different types of computers. Mm-hmm. The Russians, of course, took this literally, all while the capitalists on the opposite side were like, well, that could mean anything. We can do it.
My kid's a computer, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
there was no divide
Or it's
between...
his toaster.
Yeah, there was no divide between PC and home console to them. Remember, even the Famicom for a time came packaged with software called Family Computer Basic.
I mean, that's what the COM in Famicom stands for.
Oh, computer.
Family computer. That's what Famicom is short for.
Yeah, I know.
oh.
What do you...
I know you know. I'm telling the people listening in case they don't know.
Yeah, they don't know nothing.
It's like you never made a podcast before.
This aside, Elorg was still getting nothing in terms of profit. Profit from a game that was currently selling like hotcakes. This basically, like, you know...
Could go for some hotcakes. Sorry, that's not true. We just ate.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
But they got totally fucked on that contract with them, all only receiving a fraction of a percent of everything. This was, of course, a perfect opportunity for the man to shift back into sales mode and explain how a deal with him and Bulletproof would never end up that way. Going on to say in explicit detail about how they would all make a set flat rate of every cartridge sold from here on out for their handheld Game Boy version of Tetris, which we all know later would be the biggest one yet. But yeah, Rogers, he was assuring them that he wasn't Stein.
Right.
Alexei was happy to hear this and impressed with not only his offer and savvy knowledge of the industry, but the fact that he also had a background in game development too, unlike Stein. The meeting even adjourned with Belikov being pleased enough to move forward as well, asking for a proper deal to be written up for the handheld rights to Bulletproof.
Huh.
And although, and this was kind of a baller move here, when Belikov asked Rogers about when he would be returning back to Moscow again to finalize things, Rogers said back, "I either leave with the deal or without the deal. I'm not coming back." Belikov acknowledged this, and all the men from Elorg left the room, leaving only Alexei and Hank Rogers behind to talk. The two instantly became the best of buds. "Somehow we liked each other almost immediately," Rogers later said. "He was the friend I was looking for in Russia."
Aw.
I know. I love that. It's so
That's
sweet.
adorable.
Not to mention, these two guys are like the coolest dudes in our story by far.
Well, that's good. No,
Yeah.
I mean,
They both just love games.
I don't want to spoil,
you know.
but that will pay off later, I'll say.
Yes, you know.
Yes.
This then led to them both to pal around Moscow, with Alexei giving him the grand tour. They got sloshed on some vodka and even discussed...
Here's our brutalist architecture. It's cold.
And even discussed ideas for a Tetris sequel, which, fun fact, by the way, this would be the game that would eventually become Weltris, a sort of 3D imagining of Tetris, but not Tetris 2.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this would be the Tetris with the different shaped pieces.
Alexei had practically nothing to do with Tetris 2.
Who made Hatris?
I think that was also him. And Wordtris, which was like a Scrabble kind of sort of game.
That dude loves tennis, I guess.
Yeah.
Did he make the Tetris games where you're destroying little blocks and there's like a picture of a naked lady behind it and trying to get rid of them
Are you
all?
talking about Bubble Bath Babes? Why do I know that? This is
Why do you know that?
Well, let me see your phone. Whoa, that is a weird bookmark that you have there.
I'm gonna look up Bubble Bath Babes. Keep talking.
For Bazhitnov, it was, quote, refreshing to have a casual conversation about his creation. He offered me nothing and asked for nothing. Their friendship would soon become a vital part in having Tetris be what it is today, as Austin knows. See, this is why I kind of felt bad for messing up his name before. Not only did he kind of bring, like, you know, a new game genre to a whole other nation with the JRPG thing, but he was also a cool dude, too.
Yeah.
You're sick, dude.
Are you looking at the game?
Oh, is it Bubble? Yeah. That's some
Bubble Bath Babes
smut-ass smut.
was like a.
It was an unlicensed
Bubble
NES
Bobble
game.
thing, though.
It was very bummed, but yeah.
Or I guess Bust a Move or whatever.
Bust a Groove.
I'm just gonna look up Naked Lady Tetris.
Jumping ahead to the next day, Rogers would return back to Elorg with a whole new contract for the handheld rights. Easily spelled out on one simple page. No tricks. The only thing was that Stein and Kevin Maxwell were going to be coming today for the meeting as well.
And the only other thing was that when they put it into Russian language, it was 2 pages.
It's called Peeptris.
Fuck! That's such a good name! Is that
I thought it was called Mistress.
Miss Tetris, like Miss Pac-Man?
Oh, I meant like Mistress, like.
Wait, hold on. This doesn't make any sense because when you put pieces down, it reveals the naked lady. But if you play Tetris right, you never get to see the naked lady.
I was thinking about that. It's like you have to almost fuck up and try to get enough to jerk off to, but we can't.
Oh my god. The only thing was that Stein and Kevin Maxwell were going to be coming today for a meeting as well. His counter to them was to have a clause in the deal that would expire in 7 days. This way...
It's like The Ring.
Yeah. All those foreign hands couldn't keep modifying and altering it in their favor. This, along with the video game history lesson from Rogers the day before, would prepare Belikov too. Rogers wanted to help. He thought those companies were abusing their rights, which they kind of were.
Yeah.
Stein was still reaping all the rewards, while the Russians and the creator of himself were only getting pennies.
Those guys are abusing the rights. Oh, I mean, yeah, I was going to, too, before I came here and did all this, but I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I could have, but I didn't.
Not to mention, Alexei and his team felt much more comfortable doing business with the friendly American over the hungry Hungarian. In the words of researcher Norman Caruso, it was time for the communists to play the game of capitalism.
Ooh. And that was it. They never did again.
Stein soon arrived with the goal of obtaining those sweet, sweet arcade and handheld rights. He had no idea that a deal was already being worked out with Hank Rogers and Bulletproof. The arcade rights, by the way, were especially important as Tengen and Sega were already taking orders on machines. One of these was also the unit that me and former guest Chris Nudibin were playing on your birthday last year, Austin.
Really?
At your B-Day party. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Which one was the one that I beat you on at Barcade?
The one that was broken so that I couldn't rotate blocks.
I don't remember that.
I could... All of the machines at Barcade every Barcade are so fucked and
Yeah.
clogged with beer.
Maybe you should have picked the working side. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that was my mistake. So anyway, the meeting starts. This is the first one. Belikov, understandably pissed, pulls out the original contract with Andromeda and shows it to Stein. And this next exchange I will also read verbatim. Mr. Stein, tell me honestly, what is this document called? An agreement, he replied. This nonchalant response then threw the L-Org president into attack mode. It's not an agreement. It's a set of some irresponsible phrases or other under which rights are transferred to one party without compensation for the other. Belikov then presented the man with a new amendment to the old contract. L-Org was going to get their money, and this included penalties to the late payment. He also refused to negotiate anything further with the man until Stein signed it. Stein then told him he would look it over and return back in a couple days. It certainly didn't go as he planned, but he was still fixated on coming back and getting those other rights. And this was just the first meeting. The second meeting, right after, had Kevin Maxwell's from the almighty Maxwell Corporation up at the plate. Remember, he had rich dad powers, not just with money, but also those connections to higher Russian bureaucrats, including Gorbachev.
What was he coming to get?
He was coming to get the same thing.
Oh.
Everybody wanted a piece.
So
That wasn't even a pun.
Did Hank Rogers already get the handheld rights?
No, he had the contract drawn up for them. He was basically already in cahoots, and then this is like a test for the other two bidders.
Okay.
Because Kevin Maxwell and Stein had no idea this other deal with Hank Rogers was already basically in process, in progress.
Yeah.
While Belikov was sort of, playing coy and just sort of testing them and seeing if there was a better deal, which they're kind of proving that there wasn't. But Robert Maxwell and Mirrorsoft were pretty assuming that Kevin was going to get the work done to secure the money-making handheld rights for Tetris. So the way that Belikov opened this meeting was by simply sliding the Famicom cart that he got from Rogers the day before across the table. What is this? The L-Org president bluffed. Kevin sat there in silence, having no fucking clue where it came from. Finally speaking, he claimed it was a pirated copy of the game sold by some bootlegger. He even tried using this as a tactic for them to team up so that instances like this wouldn't happen again.
Dude, good move lying to the Russian government.
Yeah.
That's a great move right there.
His ignorance of the whole situation, though, quickly led to his biggest fuck-up.
That wasn't his biggest fuck up?
Belikov, however, had his answer. No one had the permissions to make and sell this thing, and only Rogers appeared honest and knowledgeable enough to work with. Although L-Org, unfortunately, couldn't really just tell Maxwell Corp to screw off. This could lead to a way bigger conflict. Their power, after all, very much, that could bite them in the ass later.
Mm-hmm.
So Belikov questioned that if this was indeed a pirated unit here, then what would the bid be for your company to get the home console rights to help stop it? That's when Kevy Boy threw in an extra deal where L-Org could receive some publishing rights of their own in bringing some of Maxwell's books and magazines to their country, mostly reference books and encyclopedias that could fare well there. In exchange for this, Mirrorsoft was given a, quote, right of first refusal to any new rights to Tetris. This basically meant, and I had to kind of look into this, that the holder in this scenario would have the option to go into doing business with whoever they wanted before any real entitlement came from that third-party transaction. Bulletproof could, be in without him, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also how EA was able to buy Respawn, fun fact.
Really?
They had a deal with them that
No
had right
shit.
of first refusal, and somebody else tried to buy Respawn, and EA just was like, nope, we're going to buy them.
Wow.
They just waited for somebody else to jump on it and then blocked it.
All right. Well, yeah, that is absolutely applicable.
Because then
to
you
this
get a
thing.
price.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, around this point in our story, people still don't even really know how much any of this is worth.
Right,
yet,
yeah.
But Kevin Maxwell was foolishly satisfied enough and left for back home thinking the meeting was a success. Although in reality, he got played like a fiddle and compromised any bright future with the puzzle game phenomenon. Richard Stein, back in his Moscow hotel room, read over the contract he received with the new amendments. It was essentially the same, minus the heavy penalties, of course. But Stein didn't really care. The purpose of his whole trip was to get the arcade rights, even over the handheld ones due to the production of those cabinets. So he had no choice. He signed his name, gave the papers over to Eller the next day, and further negotiations were back on again. Except, Belikov slightly said that their group was ready to sell the arcade license, but not the handheld license, with the latter costing $150K for advanced royalty payments along with a 6-week deadline.
Oh, that's on the arcade cabinets.
Yeah. It was a lot of cash for sure, more than what Stein wanted to spend. But rather than deal with another wave of backlash from Tengen and Sega like what he just went through, he took the offer and returned home. The thing was, though, is that he totally accidentally missed a crucial detail in that new contract. Belikov added a new definition for what a computer is in it. No more loopholes in bringing that shit to wherever. The updated wording said, and I quote, although funny enough, because this wouldn't really work at all today, but that a computer had to consist of, quote, a processor, monitor, disk drive or drives, a keyboard, and operating system. This more or less meant fuck your NES and Game Boy.
Yeah. So now they couldn't fucking do anything. They couldn't print anything.
Yeah.
But they can make Tetris cabs, so...
The papers were also backdated, meaning all those rights Stein thought he had were now completely stripped away.
Oh.
And knowing the businessman would be primarily fixed on the money, the late payments were just a distraction. Thus, Elorg won the fight. With both meetings now over, it was safe for Belikov to call Rogers and update him, going on to say that the Maxwells were still under those handheld rights too. Rogers responded with saying, I can't outbid Maxwell, but I can offer you honesty and promise to pay you for each cartridge. He even followed this up by bringing over a new contract for Bulletproof and politely run through the entire thing in every detail to Belikov and the reps at Elorg. They were on board, and thus the handheld license was officially secured by Rogers and Nintendo.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's how communism works for you, baby. If that was capitalism, you'd be like, I can't pay you as much as them. And they'd be like, hey, then get the fuck out.
Yeah, pretty much. Once everything was signed, Belikov presented one last pitch to our boy Hank, asking that why don't he also make a bid for the US console rights to Tetris as well? If Nintendo was going to have the Famicom and Game Boy versions covered, then how about the NES too? Rogers knew Arakawa at Nintendo of America would be down. After seeing the sales results in Japan, they'd pretty much outbid anyone for them. Bulletproof was small, and the Game Boy had yet to prove its success. The Big N, though, was a whole nother story. They were thirsty in keeping the Nintendo Entertainment System train running. So, Belikov told him to have another write-up for him in 3 weeks. Rogers was on his way back to Japan, ready to work again. Back home, he quickly called Arakawa to inform him of the news. Not only were the handheld rights acquired, but due to all that other bullshit, the home console rights there were now on the table too.
Ooh.
This was when previous Hot Button character, Howard Lincoln, the vice president of Nintendo of America, was let in on the game too. And he instantly was like, oh fuck, organizing this deal could be huge. Not only would Nintendo make millions, but it would be some super revenge on Tengen, as they were already in a $100 million suit with them for the production of their unlicensed carts.
Yeah.
The upcoming Tetris that they were working on included.
And meanwhile, everybody else who isn't Nintendo now can't make anything because of this new fucking deal.
Yeah, well, at least off of PC.
Yeah, also PC.
Yeah. Atari claimed, sidebar, as I've mentioned before, I do want to cover this whole ordeal in a future episode at some point, but they were frustrated over Nintendo's policies at the time about titles coming to their platform, alleging that antitrust violations were creating unfair competition. Remember, Nintendo was very strict at the time about home ports from the arcade, as well as how many titles your company could distribute in a single time frame in order to avoid the low quality oversaturation that was said to cause the great gaming crash years prior. This all while Nintendo themselves could essentially release whatever they wanted, as often as they wanted, and with their own promotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is what led to those famous black slanted cartridges that frequently occupied the shelves of many legitimate retail stores. I don't know if any of you guys had any of these as a kid. They had their own versions of Pac-Man, Super Sprint, Afterburner, and you know what? They were pretty damn good ports, too. Like, I actually enjoyed the Tengen Tetris on NES much more than the official one. Theirs had multiplayer, competitive, and co-op. Of course, the Game Boy version was leagues better than both of them, but I digress. Yeah. Nintendo was still pissed and wanted that shit off the shelves. The Atari subsidiary managed to get the first unlicensed releases out for sale on the system, and that could have led to way, way more companies to follow in tail. And that Tengen Tetris, by the way, was still prepping for launch. They were going to beat Nintendo to their own market by over half a year. Development was only barely started on their end since they had to waste all that time, trying to make it legal and all.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You just make it without telling anybody. You get it out right away.
You could save so much time. This all made Lincoln want to go for the throat. So he sent Rogers back to Moscow once again to obtain those NES rights and make Atari look like assholes, enemies of the USSR. Plus, he could see his buddy Alexei again.
Yeah.
Oh, and this time he was also sent with an attorney, a Russian attorney.
Ooh.
The two then strolled back up to Elorg and nearly made Belikov's head explode. $5 million for the home console rights to Tetris. The Elorg president went right to his good old telex machine and hit up Mirrorsoft. First bringing up that whole right to refusal thing that I mentioned earlier, but also giving them one last chance and one last day of 24 hours to make them an offer. One day later, on March 16th, 1989, after not hearing back, Elorg was ready to sign with Nintendo.
There you go.
However, because of the large amount of money at stake, right, I kind of forgot, $5 million used to be a lot of money to corporations back then, but they needed signatures from the guys high up at the top. So Arakawa and Lincoln flew over themselves in secret. Their competition, like Maxwell and Atari and Sega, could not find out that they were on their way there. They had to go through so much great lengths to hide it that they even lied to their own employees back at the building, claiming it was just a routine trip to Japan. Once they arrived and all started talking, Lincoln brought up to everyone there that Atari was absolutely going to come after them for this. This was when a clause was added to the contract that Elorg would have to defend their rights in any potential litigation. It was also brought up here that Alexei should finally be compensated for his portion of the royalties as well, with Lincoln himself wanting to add him, the creator, to the official contract.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. As per, this would have also allowed the guy to credit his team of Pavlovsky, Gerasimov, and even Pokhilko as well.
Nice.
Belikov, though, almost immediately shut it down, claiming the game was made on company time, which really it wasn't at all, just company property, but still. It belonged to the state. After this unfortunate conclusion, Elorg went on to talk manufacturing, suggesting that they could even make the actual carts that the game would ship on. Not only this, but they wanted to make their own version of the NES, too, in Russia. Man, what would that have looked like?
They recently did that with the Switch in China.
Really?
They made their own version?
Tencent did.
No way.
Tencent made like their own version of the Switch.
Did they go through Nintendo to do that?
I think so. So the Switch is region free.
It is, yeah.
But
all the new
not
consoles
in
are.
China.
Oh.
You have to buy a copy of the game that has Tencent's logo on it, or it won't work on your Chinese Switch.
Dude.
That's wild. Also, why would Atari come after them? Atari doesn't have console rights anymore.
No, but they want them.
Yeah.
That, that's the thing. It's like once they heard about this deal was going on sort of behind their back. Like,
fuck them.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still having fun picturing a Russian NES. I just feel like it would be something on a Metro that you'd have to pump or something. Regardless,
It's a
Nintendo...
regular NES with a hammer and a sickle on it.
Yeah, I was like, NES is already pretty blocky and square.
Yeah, that's true.
And boring.
It's got red on, like for the lettering and stuff. Regardless, Nintendo said, nah, we good on that. Just sign the shit so we can peace out. Then suddenly, it was like something out of a movie, during the final stage of negotiations, Jim from Mirasoft finally responded to that telex message, which as far as they knew, they already had the console rights. They thought it was just a mistake on Elorg's part. But that was all Belikov needed to hear to put his pen to the paper, and on March 22nd, the license for the less good version of Tetris in the NES was Nintendo's.
Do you know what year this is?
This was 1989.
Okay.
Yeah, early in 89, which before the Tengen version got released, before the Nintendo NES version got released, and before the Game Boy version got released. Both of those also handled by Bulletproof.
Why would Mirasoft believe they had the rights? It's been like, what, a week or two since, maybe longer. 3 weeks or so.
I mean, I think they were still under assumption, as per the old contract about the computer thing, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. Because they, at this point it was.
Oh, we got away with it over here. He thought it was a pirate copy. We did it.
Well, not only that, but he was the one who got totally tricked with the right to refusal thing. So according to he shook Belikov's hand. Kevin did, thinking it was yeah, we figured this out, and nope. He just got
a lot of businessmen who are bad at business.
He just got the rug pulled out from under him, which he just didn't know it yet. Following this meeting then prompted Elorg to send out his last 2 messages to both Mirasoft, Jim, and Andromeda Stein. The handheld rights and home console rights were now both property of the Big N and no longer for sale. Robert Stein was shocked and upset. I was so focused on getting what I wanted that I forgot about watching what they wanted, he later said.
And the home console rights, too.
Yeah. He felt, ironically enough, that he was a victim of lying, backstabbing, and cheating. But hey, he just got played. He's a businessman. He should know. Of course, that still didn't stop him from accusing Rogers of colluding with the Russians on their own deal, which maybe he was, while also going on to say that Kevin's meeting right after fucked everyone over in the arrangement since he was such a dumbass.
Yeah.
He was probably the least understanding of the industry. Not to sound mean, but he was like a daddy's boy. He was coming from a big company. He didn't know what he was getting into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry about sounding mean.
Well, some bad stuff happens to him later, so. But, it all worked out in Roger's benefit from being human with the person that he was trying to work with him.
Surprise.
Yeah. But at least, Stein wasn't completely screwed, though. He still technically had the home PC and arcade rights to the game, and that was something.
Yeah.
Kevin Maxwell, on the other hand, he was pissed as fuck and angrily sent a fax back to Elorg accusing them of being in a breach of contract twice over for each botched deal. He also threatened to get higher authorities from the USSR involved, and this was not a bluff. Meanwhile, over in the motherland, they were all happy as clams, with the Soviet government actually beginning to get into the Tetris spirit. And they even started to promote, going so far as to invite Gerald Hicks, an American and the first one-time champion of the new game, to a promotional trip across the country to advertise their upcoming releases on the new platforms. Mm-hmm. Everyone at Elorg were relieved to have the issues resolved so that they could keep moving forward. That was until Kevy Boy had state officials sent over to investigate Belikov. They tore the headquarters apart and searched all his documents. He stood his ground, though, assuring that the agreement with Nintendo be honored. After some questioning, the government agents had no choice except to leave.
Yeah, there wasn't any, there was no breach of contract ever.
No.
They never had home console rights, so they never had any fucking...
But when you whine to your, billionaire dad about, who's in cahoots with a lot of very powerful, very important people...
Yeah.
So Maxwell got the home console rights from Stein?
That's what they thought.
Yeah. But now he doesn't have them, so that their contract was never with Elorg, it was with Andromeda.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And it was never technically for console regardless.
Yeah.
Or handheld.
Yeah.
Just a computer.
Yes.
Which they maintain, so shut up.
Exactly. It's they were still making money off their Amiga versions of Tetris, Commodore versions of Tetris, whatever. It's just that...
He's just salty that he's an idiot.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So this is going to get very interesting. Robert Maxwell, Kevin's daddy, after hearing the word of what went down, threw a fit. And this is supposedly from a first-hand account, went, quote, ape shit. This was when Robert contacted his old friend Gorbachev to step in. who was now General Secretary of the entire Soviet Union. Rightfully so, though. He had much more important matters to tend to. We already brought up Chernobyl the previous episode, but even post that, there was societal collapse to deal with.
Yeah.
Prompting Gorby to, in more words or less, instruct Maxwell to let it go.
Hey, Maxwell, you're wrong to begin with, and capitalist fucking pigs like you are destroying my country right now. So I got bigger things to worry about.
Yeah. Mirasoft was out of the fight, along with Jim, Kevin, and especially Robert, as he mysteriously disappeared off of his personal yacht only 2 years later. Presumed to have fallen overboard, his nude body was eventually recovered from the Atlantic Ocean near the Canary Islands. An official ruling afterwards determined the death to be a combination of a heart attack and accidental drowning, although doctors still have yet to fully agree. The powerful man's sudden departure also triggered a flood of instability for the once massive company, with banks all frantically calling in their massive loans. His sons, both Kevin and Ian, his brother, Maxwell, attempted to try and hold the empire together, but were unable to prevent its collapse. The Maxwell Communications Corporation and Mirasoft were shut down only a couple months later in early 1992.
Jeez.
Back in 89, though, Nintendo and Bulletproof were hard at work on their versions of Tetris. Problem was, Tengen was just about to launch theirs, too. This was when, shortly after all those meetings were adjourned, President Nakajima from Atari got his first update in a while. And this was from Nintendo of America's Howard Lincoln. You guys want to guess what it was?
Stop making this. We own
Was it just a
Ding,
big
ding.
middle finger printed out on one of those dot matrix
In, like,
printers?
ASCII art.
Yeah.
It's
know?
coming in real slow. Like,
Yeah.
It's just like the bottom of a hand. It's like, oh, maybe it's a high five.
A thumbs up.
Son of a bitch.
Well, you are correct in that it was a cease and desist, ordering them to halt from any further manufacturing, promotion, or advertising, and of course sale of their Tetris NES title immediately. Oh, and this also included other consoles as well, like their Sega partnership. We'll get back to them next time. But yeah, the real kicker for him, though, was that it wasn't just the hot news of this, but also that their biggest competitor, Nintendo, had swiped it from him. Lincoln was later quoted as saying, "We got those bastards by the balls." And my friends, this is where we're going to leave it for today. Now you all are going to have to come back, because we're just 3 parts in, and most of the versions you know of this game aren't even out yet.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, though. We are likely going to probably finish up with part 4. Well, maybe. There could very well be a 5. No more than 5, though, I promise, I think.
That's famous last words before we become a Tetris podcast.
Yeah, 2022 rolls around. We're on part 16.
You guys want to go that high? I could make it happen.
No. No.
Does everyone know where we are?
Yeah.
All right.
This one was slightly less confusing.
A little bit. Yeah, we didn't have to go through a pyramid of
Because the story all converged in Russia. That's why.
yeah. Yeah.
Everything came to a head, so to speak.
And we got our first death. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, but it's unrelated.
It is unrelated, but I
Probably
did.
just had a heart attack being an old white guy on a boat, you know? That seems like pretty common.
I just more find it interesting that it's like, when you think about the size that corporation used to be, it's like, do you really think if Jeff Bezos were to suddenly die tomorrow, that Amazon would go away?
With any luck.
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah. I don't think it works that way
No,
anymore.
because now, I mean,
unfortunately.
after Steve Jobs dies, Tim Apple took over.
But here's
and
the
they're
thing:
doing pretty good.
we haven't gotten into it yet. But the Tetris company didn't start till '95. So if it wasn't for his death and their entire business crumbling, they could have very well continued to fight for this. Especially after the Game Boy version came out and like fucking just took over everything.
But see, that's the weirdest thing. They don't have ground to stand on other than the semantics of what a computer is. And it's just like...
They have Stein.
And then
They go after him, make him disappear off a boat.
Stein also is like even further, even closer to like, you know.
Well, yeah, he signed a new contract that said this is
He
what a
did.
computer
So
is.
it's
Yeah.
basically like he.
So their beef is with Stein.
their
not
beef is with Stein. You're
not
right.
With Russia.
Yeah.
Not with Nintendo.
It's like how many down the chain of lies. If
Yeah.
the liar in the middle figures out something to benefit himself, like, yeah.
Who knows?
And I don't. Maybe lie is a strong word with Stein. You know, we may not fully know what.
Maybe Alexei Pajitnov killed Robert Maxwell.
Crushed him with a 4-piece.
Yeah.
The bar.
He spun that guy right into the ocean.
Yeah.
No, that's not funny. A billionaire died.
All right.
That's now hot buttons on a list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already were.
I'm pretty sure we've already made fun of billionaires dying in the past.
I think we opened with targeting Jeff Bezos at one point.
Yeah.
I made a joke about buying a guillotine off Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
right. Let's wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully this isn't your first episode. If
That
it
would
is-
be a bad decision.
If it is by some reason, we already made fun of you in the beginning for clicking on something. This is part 3, but we'll do it here again.
Bookend it again.
Yeah. If by some chance this is the first one, go back and listen to part 1 and 2.
Yes.
And then
please.
when you're done, while you're waiting the 2 weeks for part 4, go listen to the rest of our 60 or whatever episodes.
Yeah, we just did a really funny one on Twitch Plays Pokemon.
Yes,
that
that's also
should be
out there.
out by the time that this is. Yeah.
And if you like what you're listening to and you want to hear more, you can head up our website, hotbuttoncast.com. From there, you can get to our socials, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the Hotbuttoncast. And I'm done promoting individual podcast services because pretty sure we're on all of them.
You should fuck the social media too. Just hop on cast across the board.
In
Let's
fact,
streamline
if
it.
you're
We have
not-
consistency.
If there's a podcast service you're on and Hot Button is not on it, please hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook and let us know.
We'll find it.
Because I'm pretty sure we're on all of them. And we're on YouTube. And subscribe to our YouTube channel so that I can change the goddamn fucking name, Google. And then hopefully you will be ready to go when we start putting out video content, which should be sometime this year.
And if you like the podcast, tell your friend. It's not that hard. Hey, listen to this
Yeah,
if you like
please
video
do.
games. I think word
Yeah.
of mouth really
Odds
helps.
are we covered something that they
Spread the
will be
word,
into.
go on Reddit, and just spam links to our stuff. Until you
maybe
get,
not.
until you
I don't
get
know about
banned.
spam.
Yeah, do it.
And make sure that you post about it on Facebook so much that Mark Zuckerberg comes to your house personally and smacks the mouse out of your hand.
Speaking of billionaires,
Yeah.
that should disappear off.
But yeah, thanks for listening.
Are we on
And
TikTok yet?
I can make one. Won't say that. Now I have to make one. Someone's gonna make a hot button TikTok. It's just gonna be videos of us dancing to Ariana Grande.
I barely know what that
I
app
don't
is.
understand
I'm
TikTok.
elderly.
It's Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Does Tencent own it?
No, some other company.
Oh, all right.
Stay tuned for part 4.
All right. Bye.